Alright, so today we're going to be dealing with drawing a city in one-point perspective. And what this does is our view is going to be one from up above, like we're flying over the city. Now in our previous one-point perspective exercises, we started with a horizon line and then added a vanishing point. For this one, we're just going to add a vanishing point right near the center of the paper. Alright? Doesn't have to be dead center, but close enough. Then you're going to draw a series of boxes around the page. Doesn't matter the size, you actually want a little variety, larger ones, smaller ones, maybe even change up the shape a bit so that they're not all rectangles and squares. Maybe over here we could make something that has more of an L shape. Alright, and you don't need to spend a whole lot of time worrying about whether or not these line up or anything yet, because we're going to fix that all afterwards. So just start by creating some objects. Now these objects are actually the tops of the buildings. Alright, so I'm going to get a few done here, about 5 or 6. Little advice, leave kind of a blank space going through or some larger areas. That's where we'll put in streets and roads later. So you can have things kind of lined up, but you want to have a little variety too, because not every city is on a perfect grid, except for Chicago, but that was because of the fire. So here we go, a couple more little pieces. Alright, and feel free to be creative. You could have a building that's more circular, any shape you want. I'm keeping these pretty simple because it's the demo video. Now what we're going to do is we're going to align all of our converging points, our converging lines down to the vanishing point. Alright, and we can do this fairly quickly too. Make sure you're drawing lightly because you'll have to erase later, but you're just going to do them all at once instead of one by one. And everything's going to look like it's zooming out of the background to the foreground, which is fine. Hey, text message. Alright, and it's okay if some buildings overlap, etc. No big deal with that. By the way, ignore all the dings. My son is at the doctor, so I'm sure I'm getting updates on it. Life happens, even when you're recording videos. So that's really steps 1 and 2 here, is you're drawing out your boxes and then making all of your converging lines. And right now, it looks pretty cool, but it doesn't look like a city, does it? We got to put the back side on all of our buildings, or in this case, it's not the back side of the box, it's the bottom of the buildings where they hit the ground. So something that can be helpful to make sure they kind of line up like they're on a street is to make sure the bottoms of many of them are on the same plane. So you see here how I went to this front side of all 3 of these. That way, like the road would go in between them. Then I can go and finish them off from that point on, kind of zigzagging around this one to create the bottom of the building. Here, going up that way. There's the bottoms of the buildings, alright? And you can see how they're kind of in a row along that road. Do the same thing on the other side. Pick a point. And put those front bottoms on there, and then get the sides on the buildings. And you'll notice this comes together fairly quickly if you kind of do everything in these big steps instead of going individually. So right now I've already managed to draw like the outline of my 6 buildings. I can then erase all of my extra converging lines that I don't need. You'll want to do this so it doesn't get confusing later on. Keep your vanishing point there though. Don't erase that. Okay. So now you're probably going, Mr. Weiland, this doesn't really look like a street. It just looks like all the boxes we've been making in class. Well, that's because we haven't put any roads or things in. So now, if we just kind of think about drawing flat, like right here, here is my road down below my city. I'm leaving a little space in between the buildings for, you know, sidewalks, plazas, whatever else is in there. I could also think about putting some kind of road going this way, right? Maybe a smaller road, alley. Got 2 lanes versus 4 lanes, etc. You can erase your spaces in between there. And then you can later go in with other details to make, you know, more of an overall scene. You know, you can get in here and go, okay, I got to make my little road divider lines. So on and so forth. Maybe here we got more lanes. We got 2 lanes going each way, so make a big old median. And we got a concrete median there. And then we can do our road lines. Always remember, sound effects help. Alright. Ooh, that one looks bad. Little off center. So on and so forth. I'm not going to sit here and draw road lines and bore you all with that, but that's how you would lay out like your city street. Then you got to think about details on your buildings, right? These buildings all have windows, they have doors, etc. So if you still stick with your original vanishing point, right? Everything goes to the vanishing point. We can sit here and lightly sketch in ideas of where we want windows or separations to be on these buildings. So here it's like that's the vertical part of the windows. I can then go like this. There's the top. Now something with perspective, as we go further towards the vanishing point, our windows look shorter and closer together. That's part of the illusion of it. That's what gives it great height. So when you're going down, like at the front of the building here, putting those in, think about that. Think about your spacing on everything. And continue to do that and add in details, all right? And you can vary this up. Like here, it's almost like I've made this glass kind of structure. By the way, make sure the bottoms of your windows line up across the whole thing, all right? So that they are consistent, or else it'll look really wonky. Okay, and I could do that and continue that pattern around this. Maybe you want windows that are more box-like. You don't want them to be, you know, all right next to each other like the building's glass. Maybe this building is brick and it has, you know, windows that have separations between them. That's no problem. You can sketch that out and then erase every other or do them individually to create the facade of the building. I could then carry that down through more of this. Also, the tops of the buildings can have things on them, you know. Maybe up here, after you've got that done, okay, we're going to sketch and put a little helicopter pad here, right? Just put an H on it, then everyone knows it's a helicopter pad. Maybe the top of the building has one of those little access doors, so you'd have to kind of draw that in as another block on top of the building where someone could come out and get to that helicopter pad. So this is where you can really push the creativity and make the drawing a more fully formed thing as opposed to just some boxes in space by adding in little hand-drawn details and whatnot. All right, and you can start creating the whole idea of the city. You could even down here, you know, maybe there's like a fountain in front of this building or a little pond, right? You could sit here and think, oh, maybe I want some little trees here, so draw on the tops of trees. Okay, park benches, cars, buses, all of it can be put in this space as you continue with this drawing. All right, so have this as a reference in class and get started on it, and then we will start pushing and see what you come up with creatively.